All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Wolfpack Show. This is a little bit of a post-game morning after reflections episode of the Wolfpack Show. I'm Matt Carter, and making a basketball show debut, I guess, is Ethan McDowell. So we're diving into the Virginia Tech win last night, looking ahead to Clemson here, but just a couple quick reminders, really quick. First, please take advantage of subscribing to our YouTube channel. We're getting very, 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 very close to 2,000 subscribers on the channel. When I say subscribe, it doesn't cost you any money. You just have to click a button. That's it. And it helps us out. It helps us make some money. That's the secret. So please do that for us. You can also get this podcast. If you like it in podcast form, you can get it wherever you may listen to your podcast, Spotify, Google Play, wherever. But be sure to rate and review. Maybe leave a comment. If you have an issue, direct it at Ethan. If you have a compliment, give it to me. And then certainly follow us on Twitter. We also have a Facebook account. Very easy to remember. The Wolfpacker. That's our Twitter and Facebook handles. And then subscribe to the website. A lot of good stuff has been going up lately. Fortunately, the deals are not as good as they used to be, but they are still out there. If you didn't take advantage of the flash sale, you could have gotten 4 months for $10. But you can get from now to the end of August, which will cover you to right up to the start of football season, including the crazy off season in basketball that's already starting with kids getting into the transfer portal. You also have the month of June, which is basically the peak of football recruiting, and that's when Ethan McDowell's byline will be all over the place. You can get all those months for $29.99. So that's a really good deal. That's basically like half price. So can't guarantee how much longer these deals will be out there for you. And last but not least, please check out our sponsors, rogueshop.com, ROG as in girl, UESHOP. They have natural cannabis products for some of the needs you may have, whether it be anxiety or chronic pain, sleep deprivation. These are natural, legal products that may be able to help you out. It's a husband-wife outfit. The husband is a disabled former veteran. He tried these products to help out with some of the issues he was dealing with and found it helpful, and now he's trying to help others. They're very responsive. It's a small business. They have a live chat with a real human being on the other end on the internet. They're also on our message board, so feel free to give them a chat. They do respond. If you have any questions, they've been responded to some already on the message board. So, with that said, not quite under 3 minutes. I didn't hit my target, but who did hit their target last night was NC State, and we're going to talk about that a lot. But I wanted to give a little plug to football recruiting, believe it or not. Ethan, NC State has one commitment last night. I don't want you to give it away because it's premium, but you did make 3 predictions for NC State yesterday on the website. In about 2 minutes or less, maybe give a summary of how you feel about NC State football recruiting, because I got asked a question in the premium chat. Maybe you can answer this. How many commitments do you think NC State has by the end of April?
Okay, by the end of April.
2.5.
Okay. So coming into the spring, I thought March and April, but specifically these first couple weeks of March were going to be pretty crucial to how this class ends up shaping up, because I think early momentum in recruiting is as important as ever. You see it a lot with like South Carolina right now has a ton of early momentum, and it's having an impact on some people, even at NC State's recruiting, where you get a few guys in the class early. You saw it with Lex Thomas last year for NC State and Javante Vereen. They were pretty huge in bringing in some talent last year. So I thought going into the spring, NC State needed to build some momentum pretty quickly because we only have the one commit from Kenan Lewis right now. So they had to kind of get things going. And I think they have. They really, really impressed during their first junior day visits last week, and they're hosting a bunch of their top targets this week as well. That starts today. couple key visitors. Definitely ones to watch arriving on campus today. So check out the wolfpacker.com for details on who that is. We have a whole running list up there that we're updating pretty much every day.
Yeah.
As far as the over under, said 2.5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say by the end of April.
End of April, 2.5. They're basically 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'll say over. I think they'll go in with 3. I think they'll land a couple early commitments. They're in a good spot with a few guys right now. That's why we just put in those 3 predictions. All 3 are guys I feel confident in. Maybe not deciding by the end of April, but these junior days, I think we'll see a couple guys decide to shut things down and start building upon what I think could be a really solid class here. Especially something I'm going to have a lot of info on today is the inroads they're making in Georgia. I think they're building a lot of momentum in Georgia, especially right now, and there's a few priority prospects there that I think are worth monitoring going forward.
Yeah, Georgia's always been important for NC State. I think they kind of view Georgia. I don't think I know. They view Georgia as their second best state in football recruiting based on results, particularly on field. I mean, it seems the guys from Georgia seem to hit more than miss when they get to NC State. So, all right, let's talk basketball. That's what most people are interested in. Ethan, I want you to share with the listeners and viewers what your father texted you this morning about NC State's performance.
Okay, yeah. So just a little background. My dad's a professor at Virginia Tech. So I woke up to a text this morning from him telling me that he thinks NC State could have beat the 87 Lakers. Like, I don't think anyone was slowing down NC State last night. And I agree. I think it would have been very tough for anyone in the country to beat NC State. And yeah, so I think even from an outside perspective, last night was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know how it translated on TV, but and I'm not trying to brag. Oh, I'm sitting courtside, or whatever. But sitting on press row, the energy level and the effort level was just different, and that's not a knock on Virginia Tech. It's really a credit to NC State because I think Virginia Tech, they're a bit of an enigma this year. They've beaten some really, really good teams. And then they had some very, quite a few head scratchers.
Mm-hmm.
But last night, I don't think it was an effort or energy issue from their part. I just think NC State, I don't know if I've seen them play that hard with that much effort and energy on both ends of the court than I saw last night. I don't know if that translated over into television, but that's what I was seeing courtside, and it just seemed like Virginia Tech was just kind of, I use the word dizzy. They were just kind of trying to catch up. They couldn't catch up to NC State, and they were just getting, NC State was just running circles around them.
Yeah, it was pretty much the exact response that I was looking for out of the team coming out of those last couple games of the regular season. I mean, you could tell they really wanted this one. Of course, the stakes were high, but they came out and they delivered from the first shot. Once that first 3 went down, I was sitting there and I was even like, uh-oh, like Virginia Tech might be in some trouble here. And yeah, Turquavion was locked in. That was key. And when his shot's falling, he's pulling up from beyond NBA range, and those are going in. And Jarkel's creating his shot and finding open teammates. It's a hard team to beat when both guards are cooking like that. I think Keith said something to that effect after the game. Once when they're both going, it's a hard team to stop.
Yeah. And what would their combined total? 50 points. Was it 17 assists? 18? I know Jarkel had the double-double, 20 and 10.
Yeah. So Jarkel got close to another triple-double. He finished with 20, 10, and 7. And Turquavion had 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, and only 1 turnover between them combined too. So that's a 13-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That's good. That'll win you some basketball games, especially when you're combining to score 50 points and you have a usage rate and you have the ball in your hands as much as those 2 guys do.
Yeah, and that's really what the story was last night. Is you have arguably the ACC's best backcourt, and if you have arguably the ACC's best backcourt, you're probably going to have arguably one of the country's best backcourt by
Yep.
nature. And they played at peak form. I mean, it wasn't a performance with Taquavion. What did he shoot? 13 shots last night?
Yeah, that's the other thing. 30 points on 13 shots.
That's
That's
efficient.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
That's insanely efficient. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the only thing he really did wrong offensively was miss 2 free throws when he got
Mhm.
fouled on a 3-pointer. He missed his first 2 free throws. And Jarkel Joyner wasn't quite as efficient as that, but I believe he was like 8 of 15, so he was above
Yep, you got it.
50%. And that to the point your father made to kind of bring it full circle there. When you have one of the best backcourts in the country and they're playing at peak form, what do you do? I mean, that's when NC State becomes exceptionally difficult to
Yep.
defend. And the crazy thing is, they only got 3 points and one bucket from DJ Bones and still scoring 97 points.
I was going to mention that. Like, how many games this year has DJ gotten into foul trouble, and that's kind of completely disrupted the offensive momentum, kind of disrupted the game plan, and that's where in-state will start to struggle. Um, in games where DJ ends with one made field goal, I feel like usually doesn't go well for NC State. So the fact that they were able to find production elsewhere, it's a good sign for the postseason run to come.
And I think Kevin Keith kind of admitted this was an adjustment. I think Dewana in particular going hard off the pick and roll to the basket. It was a
Mhm.
hard, he was setting a good pick, number one. And two, he was cutting hard to the basket. He's got to find a way to make teams respect him when he's on the court. And that's a way to do it. And he ended up with a career high 11 points in the first half to make up for some of what happened to DJ Burns with the foul trouble. But I thought there was one slight adjustment we saw with having him really cut hard to the basket on the pick and roll and find a way to contribute offensively. Did a nice job catching and finishing around the rim as well. So there really wasn't a whole lot to dislike about last night. I mean,
No.
kudos to Virginia Tech. They actually outscored NC State in the second half, and I think is it Rodney Rice? I know it's Rice.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got a nice future at Virginia Tech. He had a lot of threes in the second half to kind of help with that, and they ended up with 77 points. But I don't feel like that's a defensive issue. I think that was more of a, we got this game won by 25 points. There's going to be natural lapses in defense a little bit in the second half.
Wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of a concerted effort to kind of save your legs for the next night as well.
Yeah. And that's one of the blessings in disguise of DJ Bones being in foul trouble in a game like this. He ends up only playing 15 minutes.
Yep.
And we all know we don't have to beat around the bush. If you're going to worry about a guy's conditioning over 4 games and you're hoping to win an ACC title, DJ Bones is that guy. And well, you essentially got a night off for him to go into the Clemson matchup. We're going to talk about Clemson real quick, but Greg Gant, I want to bring that up. Didn't look very pretty. I saw a replay. It looked to me, I only saw one replay. You probably got a better look at it. It looked to me like maybe Justin Mutz accidentally landed or stepped on his outside of his ankle, and I think it was Mutz. And then,
yeah, his leg just got rolled over onto and bent in a bad way, and yeah, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. I mentioned on Twitter, I thought it'd be nice to point out, I was in the locker room after the game, and walks in Mike Young, the head coach of Virginia Tech. He was looking for Greg Gant, and Greg Gant was kind of in the corner of the room by himself, sitting on the trainer's table. He had some teammates over earlier. Dewana and Casey Morcell had come over to talk to him. But the room was kind of emptying out, and Mike Young comes in, and you can tell he's a natural leader. He just went right up. I think he put his arm around Greg Gant and and said a few words to him. I don't know what he said, but I thought that was a very classy act on Mike Young's part. Now all of a sudden it's an NC State. You're kind of now you're down to 4 guys in that front court, and you don't really have a tall wing to go small with. I mean, if you're going to go small, it's going to be really small with 4 guards. So, just what do you think about how that? I mean, I think the natural move would to put Jack Clark in the starting lineup and Ernest Ross gets lion's share of the bench minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of faith in Jack Clark personally. I really like him as a player, and I think it could be nice for him to if he gets into a rhythm. Honestly, I think it could be kind of raise this team's ceiling even more if he starts hitting shots, and what he brings defensively on that end will be nice as well. But it hurts. It hurts. But your rotation gets shortened in the postseason a little bit, anyways. But it'll be interesting to see how it changes. I like Ernest Ross. I think he brings good energy, and I think he can make some plays and spot minutes. So, and maybe he plays the same kind of role as Duana, where he's just kind of like rim running and kind of making an impact on offense this way because they have 2 guards that can find big men on the pick and rolls and stuff like that. But it becomes all the more important for DJ to stay out of foul trouble now. I think the impact of that's just going to get even more exaggerated from here on out. And hopefully Gant can come back soon, but like we said, it doesn't look too promising.
Yeah. It'd be hard pressed to see a guy who was in a full leg brace on crutches after the game, at least for the ACC tournament. Just got to assume, even if it's not a really serious injury, even a sprained knee, you're talking swelling, you're talking soreness. I mean, when a basketball player needs his knee as much as anything. But you're right about foul trouble. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think every one of those front court players, except for Greg Gant, entered the game with 4 or 5 fouls. Bones had 4.
Yeah, Jack Clark fouled out. Duana had 4. Yeah.
That is something. You're dead on. They're gonna have to learn how to not foul.
And Ross had 2 in his 9 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
but extend that out, he would have had 4 and 18. Let's talk about Clemson. It's been a tough matchup for NC State this year. I'm a big fan of Clemson. I think they got 2 legit first-team All-ACC type of guys in Hunter Tyson and P.J. Hall. P.J. Hall is a very challenging assignment for DJ Bones because you have to have a big guy on him. The interesting thing last night, Ethan, was they switched it up, and they Grant Basile for Virginia Tech is such a great 3-point shooter. They put their 4 on him, the more athletic guy, Gant and Clark and Ross. And they gave Bones Justin Much, who can shoot the 3, but he much more prefers to work the baseline or the free throw line and generate his offense from there. You can't do that on Clemson because P.J. Hall is so big and strong that if you tried to guard him with Ernest Ross or Jack Clark, it's not going to go well. You have to have DJ Bones. Yet he's so agile and it's such a good 3-point shooter that he is going to draw DJ Bones away from the basket. And they have very physical guards. Quavion Smith's career numbers against Clemson are not pretty, and it's not a one-off. It's 4 games now. So I would venture to say of all the matchups in the ACC at the top of the league, this one may be the toughest for NC State.
I'd say UNC is probably the only competition there with Baycott, but I agree because I'm not sure what you do against that team because you can't really help off them too because they have guys that can knock down shots at a pretty good clip. So
second in the ACC in 3-point shooting percentage of the team.
And that's going to be really hard to stop them. But you talked about Terquavion, and his numbers against Clemson aren't good. One of my personal things about Turquavion is just his mentality with a lot of this stuff. Like I think he hears all this stuff and takes it very personally, and he's heard a lot of it recently. And I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but he was tweeting a little bit about it last night. But I think last night when he gets rolling, I don't care how physical Clemson's guards are, you're not going to be able to stop him. So if he can keep that momentum going in, could be huge for tonight. But yeah, I'd like to see him kind of turn around that momentum against the Tigers.
Let me ask you this: are you a believer in this theory that you got to save your shots, or in baseball, you say save your runs? You know, you get that game where you got 17 runs through 5 innings, and you're like, man, save some of these runs, and then the next game you score 2. Or in basketball, you make 17 threes in a game, and then the next you make 5. Any concerns about playing too well, that they poured it all out against Virginia Tech before getting to Clemson?
No, I don't have any concerns about that. I feel like it's more of a situation where they came out just as flamethrowers in the first half, and then midway through the second half, you can already start to kind of like emotionally be like, all right, like we got this one. Now let's refocus and let's think about what we have to do next. And so it's not like you're winning in the last second where you're spending all 40 minutes consumed with like this result. The moment they got to the locker room, they're like, all right, Clemson, let's talk about it. Let's focus in. Let's lock in. And yeah, I think as far as when you're talking about a guy like Turquavion or Jarkel and carrying over that hot shooting, if you're hot, just keep throwing it up there until you cool off. So we'll see if that happens tonight. But yeah.
It'll be interesting. The other thing too, you know, Clemson did beat NC State twice this year. It's going to be hard for them to replicate what they did in Raleigh. I mean, that was just one of their freaky shooting performances. So while it's going to be hard for NC State to replicate what they did against Virginia Tech, you know, the odds that Clemson's going to come out and shoot 60% like they did against NC State and Raleigh are not great either. So a very interesting game, and Clemson needs this, by the way. You know, this is when you talk about motivation. You know, I'm probably not. I'm more cautious about my bracketology on NC State than others. Crazy thing is now NC State's down to 1 net win, quad 1 win, because they beat Virginia Tech too badly last night. That Virginia Tech fell out of that road win in Blacksburg, fell from quad 1 to quad 2. I think NC State's in a good spot. Wisconsin losing last night probably burst their bubble. So really, you're just down to, you're really talking about like 8 or 9 teams with 7 spots at this point. And NC State's clearly not the bottom 2 of those 8 or 9 teams. So as long as you don't get a lot of bid stealing and a lot of elevating from other teams below that group. Now, Clemson's one of those teams. I like Clemson. I like their resume. They just have one really bad part of their resume. It's just an unbelievable cachet of bad losses. 2 quad 3 losses and 2 quad 4 losses. So they need this one. So it'll be interesting to see how Clemson. We saw, as you mentioned, how did NC State handle the pressure and come out and perform. We're going to see how Clemson handles that now, because they need it even more than NC State probably needs it. So the mind games is going to be interesting to see.
How far out is Clemson on the bubble right now? What are they looking at?
You know, when I look at Clemson, I think they're a little bit stronger than maybe the bracketologists, but they're not. The bracketmatrix.com, which is kind of a nice place to go to just because they survey it all for you and keep it updated. Clemson didn't get a single at-large vote, which doesn't surprise me, but you would think that means they're not even on the bubble. I think they're probably one of those everybody's first 4 or 8 out teams, but there's nobody that has them in the field. So to answer your question, I would suspect if the NIT was held, I would suspect Clemson's a 1 or 2 seed. Not if I mean the NIT will be held. Clemson would be a 1 or 2 seed, which means I think they're very, very close. I think they get a couple wins in the ACC tournament. All of a sudden, they move up. They're very similar to North Carolina. I know NC State fans don't want to hear that, but somewhat similar to North Carolina in that regard. So we'll see. It should be a fun one and another late one in Greensboro, North Carolina. But the people at the Coliseum have been awesome, by the way.
Yeah, what's the environment like there? It's the first time it's been back in a little bit, right? So, what's it like in Greensboro?
Yeah, you know, 2020 was when the world shut down. It was in Greensboro. It was good. It should be really good today. I understand this is the first time since 2006, maybe, that all four North Carolina-based schools are playing on the same day.
Yeah.
And they are each game. It's not like playing each other. So one in each game. So now Wake and Duke being in the afternoon, that might be a little bit of a smaller crowd because they're the two smaller schools. But then the night session should be pretty electric because Virginia actually traveled pretty well. So did Virginia Tech, by the way. You might not have heard it on TV, but I think that was just a byproduct of they had nothing to cheer for.
Yeah.
From start to finish in that game. But there will be a lot of Carolina, a lot of NC State fans, and a lot of Virginia. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a decent, little showing for Clemson as well. So it should be a pretty electric atmosphere in Greensboro. So that's the advantage of Greensboro, right? The location and the convenience of it, and that's the advantage of it, and that's why a lot of people like it there. Not Jim Boeheim, who sayonara, he's done. The irony and justice of his career ending in Greensboro against Wake Forest, the de facto Greensboro team of the ACC, on a buzzer shot by a young man from Winston-Salem down the road from Greensboro. So
Poetic.
You could not write that up. So, Ethan, great debut. Be sure to check him out on the Wolfpack. What's your Twitter handle? Ethan M. McDowell, right?
Yep.
All right. Check him out on Twitter. He's loading it up on Scoops. We will be back at the Greensboro Coliseum tonight. We'll have another one of these episodes tomorrow morning. Be sure to take advantage of the deal to sign up to the website for 4 months for $29.99. I am doing daily premium bubble reports. I got your full viewing guide of who you're wanting to watch and why you're wanting outcomes a certain way. For instance, if you've read yesterday, I said you probably want Syracuse to have a close loss to Wake Forest because the way the net is working now, they wouldn't fall that much, if at all. And they wouldn't have to play Miami where they would risk getting their butts kicked, and then they would fall a lot. And that was the only opportunity out there for NC State to end up with a quad 3 or quad 4 loss. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. Syracuse lost at the buzzer, fell down one spot, and they're probably going to settle right around there and avoid being a quad 3 loss. So little kind of analysis of what you can expect out of that report. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Wolfpacker. Like us, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you may get your podcast and listen to your podcast. And last but not least, please go check out our sponsors, rogueshop.com. ROG as in girl, UESHOP.com. They got all your natural cannabis needs, whether it's anxiety or chronic pain or sleep deprivation, and you've tried a lot of things and they don't seem to work. You give it a try. They're legal, it's natural, it's safe, and it may help. It certainly helped the owners of this company. They believe in it. You always want to order from a company that believes in what they are selling. So give them a like, give them a follow, and check them out. So for Ethan and for myself, Matt Carter, I don't know if I ever introduced myself on this podcast. This has been the Wolfpacker Show.